Imagine my terror at the realization I'm the only person that will not be using slides at a technology conference. It is what it is, right? All right, so I'm going to talk about this line of work from several different perspectives. As you've heard, I have trouble keeping a job, and so I've held many positions, and I seem to be aging, back to Dilip Jesti's point. So I've held different jobs and different perspectives, so I'm going to share a few of those perspectives with you. Do any of you like college football? Okay, quick show of hands. Are those people, keep your hands up, are those people from the East Coast? All right, is there one, you're an East Coaster who likes college football. So this is diagnostic that I'm from Michigan, right? This is just diagnostic. Incredibly, I'm watching my now mediocre college football team, and the ad that we worked on with Fox Sports from my NAMI life, so I have no hobbies or skills. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, kind of a lifelong love affair that I have. My dad had terrible bipolar disorder, and they found me because I like to talk about that because it just happens to be part of life. It's not something I lead with. They found me many years ago. The ad is a series of young people surrounding someone who has a vulnerability on a bleacher, right? Fox Sports employees picked NAMI as their cause for the next 2 years. I, of course, had forgotten all about this ad, and I'm, usually they're selling trucks or beer to you. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. This is an ad about getting help and early intervention. So it's a boy in a bleachers, empty, and then it's a bleachers full. You may see this ad if you watch Fox Sports. What's interesting about that is NAMI is part of the entire national conversation about driving demand, reducing stigma, increasing access, early intervention, all these early intervention psychosis clinics. All these things are great. We've done a tremendous job at driving demand. In my NAMI job, I get to hang out with cool people occasionally. This is not my regular life, trust me. So I get to spend time with Demi Lovato. She's decided to become a mental health advocate. What does she say about her? This is the only thing I've ever done that my daughter thinks is cool. It's the first thing. It's the only thing. And then it's like a picture or it's not real, Dad. So I get a picture with me and Demi Lovato. It's hilarious. She says to me, at the end of my concerts, no one wants to talk to me about my music. I'll have 150 people lined up, and they want to talk about their psychiatric vulnerabilities, their self-harm, their substance issues. So something's changing in the demand side. What are we doing on the supply side? Well, half of psychiatrists don't take insurance. The suicide rate is at its all-time high. I think I'm on pretty safe ground just in terms of the public health aspect of it. Half of the most common cause of death under 50 is opiate overdose. So as we're driving demand, the question is, what have we done around supply of services? The answer is not much. And there's a couple of areas that I think are interesting to look at. One is the patient. Can the patient learn more? Technology has a role in that. Can the professional field that we have be employed more creatively or effectively? That's kind of this whole conference. Are there ways for peers to do stuff that we haven't really thought about? And I'm going to challenge you with something from my community mental health days. So back in the day, I was the doctor for a PACT team, in part because we couldn't hire a doctor to work on a PACT team, and I was the only doctor at VinFen. So I went to Lawrence, Massachusetts, for 3 years, 2 days a week, and I saw a lot of patients in shelters and in homeless type settings, SROs, their own apartments. And the single best technology intervention I've ever had in my whole career, and this is my challenge to the audience, is can you beat the air conditioner test? So I walked up a fifth floor walk-up, saw a pregnant woman with psychosis, and I called the leaders at VinFen and I said, I know Mass Health doesn't pay for air conditioners, and I know DMH doesn't pay for air conditioners. You have to find this woman the money to get an air conditioner. I go back to see her a month later. She has an air conditioner. There's still no elevator. It's still a fifth floor walk-up. She's still pregnant. She still has psychosis. But she's no longer in a 150-degree environment because it was a very hot summer that we were there. I've yet to find a technological intervention that has made a difference as much as the air conditioner. So that's kind of the challenge to the audience. Like this woman, she wasn't interested in my Haldol. She wasn't interested in Zyprexa. She wasn't interested in the risks and benefits of to the fetus. She was interested in air conditioning. And happily, the people at VinFen delivered it. Okay, so in my NAMI role, You might have heard about this project NAMI did. If you Google the word depression, you now get the PHQ-9. This has aroused some excitement in the field because the doctors really like to hold on to the screening tests. So, of course, there was an article somewhat critical of it in the Wall Street Journal, and in the British Medical Journal, we did a pro-con about it. So my take on this is everybody knows what 120/80 is. Everyone knows the blood pressure conversation. You can take your blood pressure at home. You don't have to go to the doctors to get your blood pressure. I don't know why we wouldn't want a world where everyone knew their PHQ-9 score, given the outsized impact of depression. So it seems to me a person takes the PHQ-9 at home, knows their score is 18, calls their primary care doctor, and says, I have an 18. Every primary care doctor knows you have to attend to that immediately. Right? Everybody knows it's a number. It would like be calling and saying my blood pressure is 220/150. Is it possible that the cuff is wrong and the number's wrong? It's possible. Is it possible that you've exaggerated your response, that your PHQ-9 is elevated? Of course it's possible. But in a world with all these other problems, it seems to me the Google project with NAMI is to try to have a common language, that everybody should know their PHQ-9 score. Before you go on vacation, it's really probably helpful to check your PHQ-9 as you would check your blood pressure and say, honey, I don't think we can leave until I have my, insert your favorite SSRI, or insert lisinopril, right? I don't think we can go. I have to hit CVS. And I want to thank Tom Insel in the audience for driving some of this conversation. How do you democratize screening? How do you get information to people? And I feel like that's been a real force for good. I did a quick project with John Torres. Is John still in the audience? People with schizophrenia, we had about 500 people on a technology survey. Do you use technology? Obviously, this is a subset of the population. This is not a representative sample. What are they using it for? They're using it to keep their appointments. No clinic is connecting with their phones to keep their appointments. They're doing it for med reminders. No pharmacy is connected to their phone around refills. They're using it to use music to calm their voices, which they're not necessarily being asked about their clinicians, about their strategies for attending to their voices. What we learned in a subset of people with schizophrenia, not a representative sample, is that there's possibilities to connect technology to people in meaningful ways in clinics. So I want to tell you a little bit about teletherapy, telebehavioral health, in my day job at Blue Cross Blue Shield in Massachusetts. A couple things. This began because employers wanted to, insert blank, save money or increase health, which was the employer angle. Anybody? Save money, okay? They assume that you're getting good health care. They wanted to save money. So the idea of telehealth really drove from the employer side. So now I'm introducing a whole other variable, which is what does the HR director want for their people? When I go to Dunkin' Donuts, of course, I have a certain thing that I like to get, right? Macchiato, that's a whole thing. And I asked the question, which I didn't ask before I went to Blue Cross, is what does this person have for a behavioral health benefit? Because somebody has made a decision to give them methadone for free, or not, to give them telebehavioral health, or not, to offer them services outside of an emergency room, or not. And somebody has to make that decision. This has been a great education for me, that the employer has to want to this, right? So the employers wanted to save money by avoiding emergency room visits using telehealth for ditzels, sore throats, all the things that get you into the emergency room that you actually don't need to be in the emergency room. Enter mental health parity, which of course is this great, fascinating tailwind on everything. Like, excuse me, if you're going to do that for the medical side, can you do something for the behavioral side? Ken, can you please stop attending these meetings? Right, that was the first position they took. No, I'm not going to. No, but seriously, this isn't about saving money, because the behavioral health use case is completely different. We have an access problem, which is completely different than saving emergency room visits. So once you can actually stomach the possibility that we might have to spend more money to improve access, I was able at Blue Cross to flip a switch for about 1 million people. They have telebehavioral health. Now, there are limits to implementation, patient attitudes, leadership. That's a separate question. But, you know, for the fully insured population, I don't know if you know anything about this. I knew nothing about this when I got there. The fully insured population sends a big check. Blue Cross handles all your stuff, and at the end of the year, money people go back and forth, and a check goes back and forth. I don't know how that works. Big companies, self-insured people, they decide their own benefits. Just like that. How many of you have ever talked to a person in the human resources department about your benefits? Bless you. Okay, great. Do you know why that matters? Because that's where the decisions are getting made for all the big teams. The big teams make a decision. So I was able to flip the switch at Blue Cross. No copays for methadone. We're in the middle of an opiate crisis. It doesn't count against your deductible. Okay, great. We go to a bunch of accounts. Some accounts are like, I don't think I want to support that. Wow. We don't think methadone's that good of an idea. These people are driving large trucks or huge cranes. We don't want any opiates in their life at all. We want them to old school cold turkey it. Very interesting. Other companies, like, obviously we should do that. How much is it going to cost? 2 cents per member per month. It's rounding error. Like, the cost of a new MRI machine is adding more to the cumulative TME, total medical expenditure, than this. But some people don't want to make these things available. Some people in HR they need access to behavioral health. We had one organization who had a kid going to college. They wanted telehealth. Bless you. That's a big, huge game changer because then they see the value of it. So I'm going to say there's another 400,000 people who have the telehealth benefit. And so it's about 1.3 million out of Blue Cross's 2.8 million. So we're almost halfway there in terms of promoting teletherapy, telebehavioral health. Here's a hard question. How many of you are clinicians? Quick show of hands, right? It's an interesting question. It isn't one I really thought about. How do we prove this is worth the money, right? It's a hard question. Ken, what are your outcomes? I'll get right back to you on that, right? Because the outcome might be access to treatment. But as you know, our field has not been strong on outcome measurement, which is why, collaborating with Google, we're doing the PHQ-9 project. We're trying to get some outcome conversations advanced across the board. The idea that the patient feels a little better is just not really satisfying in a world where the employer says, what am I getting for my money? Well, improved access is one. Improved access is a metric. Readmission rates is relevant, but only for sick people. It doesn't work for healthy people, right? Many healthy people are never going to go. How are they doing in terms of their functioning? It's hard to measure. Do you know this term presenteeism? Anybody show up and not have a great productive day? That's presenteeism. That's a leading cause of workforce loss of productivity is depression causing presenteeism. And then absenteeism, of course, is not showing up. Depression is also the leader. So you think employers would be all over this? Well, they often do the psychological process of thinking, well, that doesn't apply to my employees. My employees at, pick your favorite place, let's say McLean Hospital, are amazing. We really don't have those human problems. We might not want to, really get into that too much. Well, what about the family members? Family members are tuned up. They're fit, they're terrific, they're doing, so this is what you get. No, but I'm telling you, the national data shows depression is the leading cause of presenteeism and absenteeism. It's costing you money. That's why you should consider getting a PHQ-9 metric in your life, why you should consider getting, telebehavioral health. So this has been a fascinating education for me because we don't really think about how do we prove that our work has value, right? It's just an interesting question. So when you pick a job like mine, you can flip a switch for 1 million people. It's kind of cool, right? But then there's 1.8 million people that you're in this very long conversation with. And that's an ongoing, I would say, an interesting challenge. So I'm going to conclude by saying that if you can beat the air conditioner test, you've really done something for people. And I'm going to cede the balance of my time, as they say in the Senate, to my other august speakers. It's really quite a lineup, and I think I'm probably a few minutes ahead. But I think there's a lot to learn here, and we have a lot of different perspectives. And I'm happy to participate with any questions that I've raised in my rambling, non-PowerPoint, anecdote-oriented talk, we can pick that up in the discussion. Thank you.